There is certain kind of suffering that almost nobody talks about. Not physical pain, not heartbreak, not even failure, but the quiet psychological decay that begins when human beings slowly realizes that despite all their thoughts, ambitions, intelligence, plans, dreams and potential, they have stopped becoming useful to reality itself. And I think many modern people are silently experiencing this. We live in a strange time, a time where people consume endless information, endless entertainment, endless advice about success, discipline, productivity, purpose, business, self-improvement and philosophy, and yet many still feels powerless when left alone in a room with their own life, because somewhere deep down the human mind understands something's brutal. Reality does not reward potential. Reality responds to usefulness, and maybe that is why so many people today feel disconnected from themselves, because modern life allows a person to feel mentally stimulated without actually participating in reality in any meaningful way. A person can spend years watching filmmaking videos without writing scenes, starting entrepreneurship without building anything, consuming motivational content without changing behavior, imagining greatness without becoming independable. And what makes this dangerous is not laziness, it is illusion, because the brain slowly starts mistaking intellectual consumption for progress. Someone watches videos about discipline every day and starts feeling like they are improving. Someone journals endlessly about their future and begins emotionally identifying with a future version of themselves. Someone thinks deeply about changing the world while remaining unable to change their own habits, and slowly the identity grows, but reality stays the same. This is one quite tragedies of modern life, because externally nothing dramatic appears to happen. The person still has dreams, still thinks deeply, still imagines a better future, still talking about ideas, still believes someday things will change, but internally a silent gap begins growing between imagination and embodiment. And I think many people can feel this gap emotionally. That strange anxiety at late night. That strange anxiety late at night, that uncomfortable feeling after watching another inspiring video but doing nothing afterwards, that quiet realization that time is moving while the person remains psychologically trapped between intentions and action. And maybe this is why so many people today feels exhausted despite doing very little meaningful work, because carrying unrealized potential is heavy. The human nervous system can feel when life is drifting. It can feel when days are disappearing into distraction, avoidance, overthinking, fantasy and passive consumption. And eventually something begins to decay inside a person, not because they are evil, not because they are stupid, but because human beings are not designed merely to consume existence. We are designed to participate in it, to build, to solve, to contribute, to create, to carry responsibility, to become capable enough that reality itself can trust us with more weight. And maybe this is why difficult work gives people dignity, not because suffering itself is beautiful, but because competence reconnects a person to life. A useful human being can help others solve problems, reduce suffering, create stability, protect people, build meaningful things. And deep down, I think every human being wants to feel needed by reality in some way. Not famous, not admired, but needed. There is something psychologically stabilizing about becoming reliable, about knowing that your existence contributes something beyond your own endless self-analysis. And perhaps this is why many people who have materially comfortable lives still feels empty, because comfort without contribution slowly creates a spiritual weakness. A person begins living only inside thought, and thought alone can become a prison, especially for intelligent people, because intelligent people can mentally simulate progress vividly, so vividly that years pass without embodied movement. A person can spend years imagining the business they built, the screenplay they will write, the transformation they will become, the future version of themselves everyone will admire. And because the imagination feels emotional real, the urgency to act slowly weakens, until one day reality suddenly becomes unavoidable. Years have passed, nothing has built, the body has aged, opportunity disappeared quietly, and the person is forced to confront a terrifying realization. I thought about life more than I lived it. I think many people are secretly carrying this pain, not because they lack intelligence, but because modern life makes passive existence extremely easy. You can scroll endlessly, consume endlessly, dream endlessly, plan endlessly, without reality ever demanding immediate confrontation. But time still moves, and reality compounds whether we participate consciously or not. This is why usefulness matters, because usefulness grounds a person back into reality. A useful person cannot remain entirely trapped inside fantasy. Reality begins responding to them. People trust them more, opportunities appear more, self respect slowly returns, and perhaps self respect is one of the most misunderstood things in modern life. Many people think self respect comes from confidence, motivation, positive thinking, external validation. But I think genuine self respect comes from evidence that you can move despite resistance, evidence that your actions align with your words, evidence that you are becoming someone reality can depend on. And this is important because one of the hardest realization in life is understanding that intelligence alone changes nothing, awareness alone changes nothing, dreams alone changes nothing. A person can understand philosophically, analyze themselves deeply, journal for years, and consume knowledge endlessly and still remain stuck, because reality changes through embodied action, not conceptual identity. And this is painful because many people unknowingly replace action with emotional attachment to future version of themselves. They become psychologically addicted to potential, but potential without repeated execution slowly transform into regret, and regret is heavy, especially when someone knows they were capable of more. But maybe this is where life begins changing, not through dramatic motivation, not through perfectly planned transformation, but through a small movement of honest participation in reality. Someone studies for 20 minutes despite resistance. Someone writes one paragraph. Someone uploads their first imperfect video. Someone learns one skill. Someone talks to people despite embarrassment. Someone becomes useful in one small corner of reality, and repeated long enough that changes a human being. Not because the actions themselves are extraordinary, but because consistency reveals self-trust. And once a person starts trusting themselves again, their relationship with life changes, because now the mind no longer experiences itself as helpless. Movement creates momentum, action creates clarity, reality starts responding differently, and slowly a person begins escaping psychological paralysis. Maybe this is why responsibility transformation people, because responsibility forces a human being beyond passive existence. It demands participation, and perhaps the modern crisis is not merely economic or technological, perhaps it is existential. Millions of people are overwhelmed with information but disconnected from meaningful contribution, disconnected from direct contact with reality, disconnected from responsibility, disconnected from usefulness. And maybe this is why anxiety feels so widespread, because deep down many people know they are carrying unrealized potential while remaining disconnected from action. And perhaps the way out begins here, not through fantasy, not through waiting for perfect motivation, not through imagining the future endlessly, but through one honest question: where can I become useful today? Not someday, today, even in small ways. Because maybe the goal of life is not merely happiness, maybe it is alignment, to become someone whose existence genuinely contributes something meaningful to reality. And maybe that is where dignity slowly returns to a human being.